The topic which we are going to start today is the frameworks. Till now, what we have covered is we have covered Java, complete Java, in which we learned how to write methods and all everything. So, using that, we used some of the methods of Selenium because Selenium is just like a jar file which comes as a jar files, and uh, in that, most of the code is already written, and you were just using those methods. Okay, now as we know how to automate things using Java programming language, now we will be learning how exactly we write code in real-time projects so that we have later on we have to do less work. Okay, so that is possible through frameworks. Like if I give you a small example that how your work will be less, just consider the example, whatever example I've given you till now uh, for the automation. Every time you were writing few steps which were like repeat, and I was just copy pasting them. Like first thing was invoking a browser. So I was always creating a method invoke browser in my every example. Though I was just copy pasting, but yeah, uh, it's a repeat. And if something will change in a way, invoke browser will happens, then you have to go and change in all your class files, and then only things will work, right? That means we were repeating things again and again. So what is the better approach? Better approach is that instead of writing that method again and again, let's write it once, and so that we can use it multiple times. This is reusability of the code. Okay, so here this um, framework things come. So what is a framework? A framework is the core structure of any environment. It can be a testing environment, or designing a web application, or developing some Windows based application. This is the core structure of any environment. What we do is designing a framework means defining a standard of writing code. Without a code framework, the code will be written in haphazard manner, which is neither reusable nor readable. Framework reduces the rework of writing code. As I gave you an example, that invoke browser method I was writing again and again, but using from frameworks, you will write that once and use it multiple times. Okay. Framework reduces the rework of writing code, provides high portability, and reduced script maintenance. A framework must provide an ability to generate report. Very important, because till now, if we were using TestNG, then only we were getting the reports, and that too for the methods written in one single class. What if I need report of all the classes which I have, all the test cases which I have? So our framework should have an ability to generate reports. And the reports which we have seen till now were the default reports created by TestNG, whereas the one which we will integrate in our framework, that will be an external report, will have pie charts in it, will have a proper good looking report, which even you can share or send it to your stakeholders as well. Otherwise, the report which is created by TestNG, that is something which is not in a shape that you can send it to your higher authorities. I mean, your stakeholders or your product owners. You cannot send that. That's not a good looking report. But the one which we will integrate in our frameworks, that will be something which will have a proper format with interactive reports having pie charts and all. Okay, so maybe it may it be Excel format or an HTML format. So you can either send it in Excel format or in HTML format. The project which we are going to create, or the frameworks which we are going to create, that will have an HTML report. Okay, then it must have the capability to take screenshot of failure scenarios. So wherever things will fail, we will take a screenshot. In our framework will also have this capability. Then it must have a logging functionality to log all the activities. So yes, for in our projects also we will keep all the logging functionality in different log levels like info, debug, error, etc. There must be a standard defined and maintained while defining frameworks, which includes the way of designing libraries logging formats, reporting formats. So we will also see that there will be a standard defined. All the libraries, or you can say the logging format, they will have a proper standard which will be used across the complete framework. It's not that in a single file you'll get a different report, and for the different test cases you will get different report. No, for the complete project you will get a single report in same format. Okay. Now, if I talk about what are the major famous frameworks famous in the market, so these are the three famous frameworks famous in the market. One is data driven, second is keyword driven, and third one is hybrid driven. Okay. Theoretically, they are famous, but in the real world, these are the frameworks which are not used. Data driven still a part, but keyword, people have moved out of keyword driven, and they are either going to BDD, that is behavior driven development, or they are going towards a technical proper framework which I'm going to design, that is modular framework. Okay, so we will be seeing both. We will be seeing keyword driven as well. Sorry, we will be seeing BDD as well as modular driven. Okay, but if I give you a small brief, what is data driven, what is keyword driven, and what is hybrid driven, then this goes like this. If we talk about data driven, uh, so data driven is the one where your framework is derived through test data. Your test data can be kept in some external file, or in some text file, or in some properties file, or in some database. Okay, so your test case will be executed based on the test data you'll put in your files. Let's say for a simple example, let's say you want to test that whether my logging functionality works with 10 different email IDs and set of passwords. Okay, so if you have to test this, one way is write your script 10 times and then test. Not a good idea. Other will be write your script once and pass 10 different parameters to it, and those parameters will drive your test case. That means it's a data driven, right? Now this data which we are talking about, we can keep it anywhere external. Okay, so that we don't have to touch our project. So if you're keeping it external can be an external file, can be an external Excel sheet, can be an external database. Okay, so uh, that is what data driven is. Any questions till now? Okay, after data driven we have keyword driven. Keyword driven is the one which is derived through keywords. Like there will be multiple keywords. These keywords are driving your framework. Okay, you have a keyword called open browser. What it will do, it will go and open your browser for you. Then you have a method called click element. What it will do, it will go and click on a particular element. Similarly, there can be an application level keywords like login to Gmail. What it will do, it will go and open Gmail account for you. Okay, so this was the framework which became famous because of QTP. But now people are not moving or designing hybrid driven anymore, or sorry, keyword driven anymore. They have moved towards different approach which we are going to learn, and the one which has a capability of both, that is data driven as well as keyword driven, that is known as hybrid driven. Okay, so yeah, this is a brief theory about frameworks. Any questions till now? Okay, then moving on to the frameworks which we are going to design. This is the kind of framework we are going to design, and it will have most of the capabilities which one need. Okay, if you look at it properly, I mean, uh, as I said that it will be a modular driven framework or modular framework. So why I'm saying so? If you look at it properly, you will see that everything is divided into different layers or modules. Starting from the like this particular framework is divided, I have divided into three sections. You can see different colors to it. The first one is in green color, second one is in blue color, then we have some part in orange, and I'm not sure what this color is, and there is third section which is totally in different color. So what are these? The first one is mostly an input part. Okay, these will be kept external to your project. Then the second section which you see between these two dotted lines, this is your code. Okay, this is total code. The complete code will come in under this layer. And third one is your output. So the first one is input part, which are all external files. Okay, there'll be like input files which you'll create. Then in between we have the complete code, and then there is output. Okay, so here if you'll see, you will get three things as an output. First is interactive report, second one is log files, and third one is screenshots. As we were discussing in our in that framework part, that a framework must have a capability to create reports. So you can see we have also have interactive reports. It should generate logs. So yes, we are also logging everything into log files. Then it also must have a capability to take screenshot. So yes, our framework will also have a capability to take screenshot. Then if you look at here, I have put data-driven testing. So as I said, that our framework will also have a capability of data-driven. So yeah, this section will be where we will be keeping our test data, and you can see as I'm using Excel sheet, so I'll be keeping all my test data in an Excel sheet, and then we'll be reading it again and again. Then in the complete framework which we'll design, will not keep anything hard coded. So for all the configurations related thing, we will be keeping them in config.properties file. This is a standard used in Java where we generate .properties file, keep all the variable and its values, and somewhere we will be reading them and using across the project. Okay, then this particular framework will have two ways to trigger. One, you can manually go and execute your code even through command, either through command prompt or through right click and or through Eclipse. Okay, and this framework will also have a Jenkins trigger. What did I mean by Jenkins trigger? Jenkins trigger means that you are going and executing your code through Jenkins. Okay, so the command which you are going to either execute manually, that will be executed through Jenkins then. Okay, so yeah, you will have a Jenkins trigger. Then our framework is divided into multiple modules. So now we'll talk about these. Before that, any questions? Okay, so if you see here, we have four layers in the coding section, in the code section. The top or the bottommost layer is automation layer, where the automation tool used is Selenium. We are writing certain contracts and its implementation. Okay, now you are aware of interfaces, right? So whatever interface we'll write in our project, we'll call it contracts. That's a standard used for interfaces, because interfaces are like contracts only, and their implementation is written here. In this particular layer, you will only write methods related to Selenium, that too with all generic values. There won't be any hard-coded value. There won't be anything related to the application you are going to automate. Nothing. The application you are going to automate, you will not have even a single thing out of that. Not even a single term. This layer will be independent of your application. Okay, and even these things which you're creating, the left section, the right section, all these things will be independent of your application. You will be creating each and everything um, as a generic code which can be used in any project. Okay, so the benefit of keeping this Selenium layer separate is that, let's say going forward, some other tool comes in market which has higher stake, or which becomes more popular than Selenium, or which is solving much more problems than Selenium, then what you can do is just take out this layer and insert the new one. Even not the complete layer you have to take out, you just have to take out this implementation part. You'll see in later that how whatever I'm saying, how is it possible. So what you can do is just take out this implementation layer, okay, insert the new tool, rest everything will remain same, everything will work fine. This is how we will be writing our code. Okay, so each and every layer will be like a module. You can just take it out, insert something else. You don't like the Selenium going forward. You found some other tool to be famous or popular or better than Selenium. Just take out this implementation layer, insert the new tool with new implementation. Rest everything will remain same. Very few changes will happen in other layers. Okay, so this is the kind of framework we are going to develop. Okay, and moving on, so this is the bottommost layer, which is automation layer, where we will be using Selenium tool as an automation, and there won't be anything related to application. It will be a separate layer. Then next layer comes the application layer, where we will be using certain design patterns. Okay, like we will be learning three different design patterns. One is uh, object repository, second is page object model, and third one is enhanced page object model, that is page factory. So all the three has their own benefits and own limitations. We'll be learning about them, and then at the end we'll take a conclusion that which one we are going to use. And I know all of you will choose page factory, so I've already written page factory. So this particular framework is going to use page factory or enhanced POM as your design pattern. So in your interviews, you can say that my framework has a design pattern known as enhanced page object model, which is page factory. But I'll give you uh, knowledge about all the three which are famous in market. And this particular layer will have all the web elements defined, all the methods defined, but there won't be any test case. For test case, we have another layer. Okay, so this layer will be totally based on, or you can say the completely you will be application driven. Will be using methods from this layer, that is automation layer. Okay, it will be using methods from automation layer, and will have everything related to application, but no test case. For test case, we have another layer that is known as test case layer. You can either use JUnit here, or you can use TestNG, whichever you're comfortable with. I'm more comfortable with TestNG, that's why I'm using TestNG. And whatever methods you have written in your application layer, that will be converted into your test cases in this test case layer. Okay, so this is your third layer where you will be writing test cases. Then to execute these test cases, we'll be using some XML files. Now you are aware of those XML files, testng.xml files. Okay, we'll be creating different XML files, like one for sanity, one for feature, different XML files for smoke test and so on. Okay, so that will be your topmost layer, and the execution of those layers can be manual. Manual means either using Eclipse and right click and execute run as, or second way is by executing it through command prompt. So through command prompt also you can execute these XML files. Okay, and when you are doing it through command prompt, you can also do that through Jenkins. So we'll also be integrating Jenkins to it. Okay, so Jenkins will trigger these XML files. Then for each layer there will be certain utilities which you'll be creating. Now what is a utility? Utilities are something which make your work easy, or you can say if you have something to be executed multiple times and will be used everywhere in your project, then you can create utilities for them and keep them in separate files, like uh, wait commands, like explicit wait. There will be many explicit waits which we are going to use in a project. So if I keep on writing the complete logic inside the project, that will be a difficult task. So what we can do in that case is, instead of writing it again and again in your project, we'll write it once in as a utility in our utility folder, and we can call it again and again. So that is one example of utility. So we will be creating uh, utilities at automation layer level, at application layer level, as well as at test case level. Okay, so this is a brief, and this kind of framework, you can call this framework as a modular framework, which has capabilities of data driven but does not have keyword driven. But yeah, um, we are using a much advanced approach of writing test cases. Okay, and going forward, you can also integrate BDD in it. BDD means behavior driven development, and to uh, introduce BDD for this framework, what you have to do is replace these two layers, the first layer and the second layer, because the BDD framework which we are going to learn is Cucumber, and Cucumber framework only supports JUnit. It does not support uh, it does not support uh, TestNG. Okay, so uh, just remove these two layers, test case layer as well as test suite layer. Remove them, insert BDD. So for BDD again, there will be one layer, one new layer which will come, which will replicate, or you can say uh, take this or implement this, and then we will be having some feature files which will be replacing this XML files. Rest everything will remain same. So this is the kind of framework we are going to create. Remove a layer, insert the new one, and you're ready to go. Okay, so Anshu, you have a question. Please repeat all the layers, the layer only name. Okay, name you can see in front only. Here, this section is your input. The last one is your output. Below, in the center, you have your code layer. Okay, then you have automation.
No, no, sir. I need only the application layer, 4 types or 3 types. You have said that design pattern.
Okay, you're talking about design
Okay, you're
pattern.
talking about design pattern. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, can you go on mute, please? Yeah, so don't worry, we will be covering everything again, each and every layer. I'm going starting with it. But yeah, just for your reference, our design pattern, there are three design patterns we are going to cover. One is object repository, second is page object model, and third one is page factory. Okay, so any other questions here? Okay, so just draw this framework or these layers multiple times on your project, like on paper, so that you can remember it. And in your project, you just have to create this. Rest everything will work accordingly. I mean, in your real time, when you're going for any interview, they will ask you what kind of framework you have developed in your project. Okay, so just go and tell them that this is the framework which I have created. Tell about the different capabilities, tell them that why you are creating different interfaces and then their implementation, why not direct implementation. So we'll talk about each and everything. Okay, there is one very important and very common question interviewer ask in interviews with from the framework is, what are the different utilities you have created in your project? Okay, so remember whatever utilities will be creating, just remember those and tell in your project and tell in interviews. Okay, so if they ask you whether you have data driven capability in your project, tell them yes, we are reading from an Excel sheet. Okay, uh, they can ask you questions like uh, what are the, like are you keeping anything hard coded? So tell them no, nothing is hard-coded in our framework. Everything is derived through a config.properties file. Okay. So yeah, that's the kind of framework we are going to develop. Now, any questions, or if not, I can proceed with actually creating the framework. Okay, so I can start with creating the framework then. So let me just start the Eclipse. By that time, if you have any question, do let me know. Yes, Anshu. Most of the organization, I have seen this. This is the framework which people are designing a lot. Okay, and it has all the capabilities you need. Yeah, some twisting and tweaking can be done, but the base structure will remain same. All the I mean, every framework will have all these things which I just mentioned. Okay, yeah. There are many more things which people are adding. Instead of testng, they might be using JUnit, or instead of testng and XML, they might be using JUnit and Cucumber. Okay, so yeah, but the basic things remain same. There will be few more utilities, some extra utilities will be there, but basic things will remain same. Okay, okay. So yeah, let me start now. So let me start with creating a project. I'll be creating a new project for it. Okay, and we will be calling it, let's say, uh, Modular Framework, and let's give today's date, 23/12/2017. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we what we have to do is let's import all the jar files, and starting with only Selenium I'll import. Later on we'll add the remaining ones. Okay, we will be using some 12 to 13 external library files for this, but for now I'll just introduce this Selenium 3.5.3, and in market they have also launched Selenium 3.8, so you can download that also and continue with it. I will be using this one only. So yeah, uh, we have added Selenium Java file in it. So we are ready to start now. And this time the source folder, in the source folder, the packages which I'll be creating, they will have some relevant name instead of day 1, day 2, day 3. So they will have some relevant name. Okay. So let's uh, let's map with um, this layer. So if you can see at the bottom one, we have automation layer. We will be starting with that layer, and today and tomorrow we will complete this layer. Okay, rest of the layers won't take much time. This is the most bigger one, you can say. So we will try and complete it uh, today, and most probably by first half of tomorrow. If not, we'll take tomorrow's complete day as well. But yeah, let's start with this layer. So the first we have is automation layer. In our framework, we will call it common labs. Okay, why I'm calling it common labs? So you can see it's a shorten of common libraries. Okay, Here, this layer, automation layer, which I'm creating, I'm using automation tool as Selenium, and it is independent of application you are automating. That means going like, let's say you are working on application one, you created this project, this framework, then you moved on to second automation tool, or you can, sorry, you moved on to second application, then also you will be needing these same files. So these files, this layer, automation layer, is independent of application you are automating. So you can just take out this and introduce in your second application which you are going to automate. Okay, that is why I'm calling them as common libs. That means common libraries. Okay, now in this common libs, we have two packages. One is contract. So I'm saying common libs.contract, and second one will be common libs dot implementation. Okay, so in common libs we have created two packages, contracts and implementations. So these will be mapped with the last layer, that is automation layer. Okay, then coming on to next layer that we have is application layer. So just let me give you an introduction to the. Okay, so um, this is the application we are going to automate. Okay, earlier was using mercurytravels.co.in, but that application has some you can say limitations, or their calendars are not proper, and they have many dynamic elements. So creating automation framework for that was a challenge. So it's better we learn on a more stable website. So we'll be using this newtools.demoaut.com. Okay, this is one website which is a dummy website for travel and tours and travels. Okay, so you can use uh, all the features what you need, like it has a home page, everything else it has properly. Okay, so it has home page, it has its flight sections, then it has its hotel sections and everything. Car rentals, sign on. Okay, it has sign on section, it has register section, then support section. Okay, and contact. Some of the pages are under development. Okay, so either you can use this, or you can use the other one which I was just mentioning, that is mercurytravels.co.in also. Mercury Travel. You can use this one as well. Any application you can use, or this mercurytools.com. Even you can use this one also. Okay. So let's say you are choosing Mercury Travels only. So you can see that the name of the Mercury Travels is www.mercurytravels.com. So when you're creating its that application or the automation of that application, how we will give the name in the source folder, it will be like always it's in back to back and forward form. Okay, so it will be like com dot, then it will be mercury dot, and then whatever name you want to give. So it will always be like more com dot, it always go from back to forward. So your name of application is www.mercury.com, mercurytravels.com. So here it will be www.mercury. Let's say here I can give the complete name travel dot. Now give the proper name to your package. Okay, so if I go to that Mercury Travels, mercurytravels.co.in, we can automate this application, this application also, where you can create customer login. There are many things to automate here. Okay, so here I can give some name into it. Say for example, I can give as pages, because we will be creating certain pages in it. And then there will be one more package which we'll be creating, that will be for the next layer, that is for test case layer. Okay, so in this layer, the package which I've just created, we call that is for application layer, where we will be using different design patterns, and for each page there will be a separate class. That's why I called it as com.mercurytravels.pages. Next we'll be creating is com.mercurytravels dot, as you are going to create test cases, so I'll call it maybe test or test cases, whatever you want to call. Okay, so this will take care of second and third layer. Then uh, you will be needing certain utilities, so I'll create a package with name utils, in which you'll be keeping all your utilities, all the three utilities: test utility, application utility, or automation level utility. Okay, then so these are the different packages. There will be some more sub packages which can come, so we'll take care of them later on. Then next is uh, yeah, so this automation layer. Okay, next is we have this input section, so let's create some packages for this, or folders for this input. First of all, we'll be having one config.properties file, so I'll create one folder for it and we'll call it config folder. So here I'll create a new folder and we'll call it config. So config folder is created. Um, next one is for this data driven. It's like an input file, like it's like an input. So I'll create one more folder, right click new folder, and we'll call it input. Then so one folder created for config.property, one folder is created for this Excel sheet. Then talking about the outputs which we get, first is reports. Okay, so reports will create ones, will integrate report to our project. Then for logs, you can create one folder. Logs. Then what else? Last one is snapshots. So screenshots. So I can create one folder, like folder, where I can say output. Okay, so output will be screenshots. So this is the directory structure we'll have in our framework. Any questions till now? Okay, Anshu, you have one question. Would you recommend shopping sites in initial to? No, don't use shopping sites, because the shopping sites which are available, like they are not uh, demo sites. They are real-time projects, right? So real-time projects, you'll not have access to many things when we are talking about any real-time project. Okay, so don't start with any e-commerce site. Generally, e-commerce sites are single page sites Okay, so it will become very difficult for you to maintain it. Start with some travel website or some other. If you have any website in your project, you can start with that as well. Okay, don't start with eBay or Amazon or Flipkart. They're very big sites, you'll get confused. Let's start with the small one, and then later on you can move on to any website. Okay, so you can use any other travel site as well, Redbus or yatra.com, whatever you feel like. Okay, anyways, most of the things you will only be doing in the application part. I'll just be guiding you. Okay, so so all the directory structures is mapped. Now we know which one to use. I mean, which directory structure is mapped with which layer. So let's start with the first one, that is automation layer. And first of all, we'll be creating certain contracts. Okay. Now, what is a contract? Contract will be your interfaces, and how we are going to decide which interface I'm going to create. So just it's very simple. What we are going to do is we will be designing, or we will be dividing our things into different modules. Like the first part is in Selenium, all those things which does not use any web element, all those methods which does not use any web element, we can keep them in one class file. Then we can divide rest of the interfaces or classes based on the different type of elements we have. Like for drop downs, we can create one separate class. For all mouse operations, we can create one separate class. For all what else we have? We have drop down, we have uh, then mouse operations, then text box, then uh, there are like for taking screenshot, we can have a separate class. For uh, for Windows handling, we can have a separate class. For alert handling, we can have a separate class. For frame handling, we can have a separate class, and so on. Like this, we will be dividing our complete this complete layer, that is this contract and implementation part in based on web elements, based on different type of web elements we have. Okay, so the first one which we are going to create is the one which does not need any web element. Okay, so first interface we'll create will be, okay, we can call it uh, let's say driver. Okay, this will be the first driver, and its implementation will be okay, I'll create this implementation part later on. So the first one is public interface. First interface I've created as driver, where I'll be keeping all the methods which are uh, which are common to your WebDriver only. Okay, which you perform directly on your browser, like invoking a browser. Next, getting a title from a browser. Next, getting current URL from a browser. Okay, so all these methods are the one where you don't find any element. You directly perform these methods on your browser. So all those things will be writing in one class. So the first method which I'm writing is public void, and I can call it as open browser and navigate to. So this will be my first method, and this method will also have a capability where we will be throwing exception. So I can say throws exception. Okay, as we are creating an interface, so it will only it will have only and only abstract methods. There won't be any definition of these methods. Only abstract methods will have. Okay, so this is first method. Then what else? We can have one method as close browser, close current browser. Okay, again throws exception. Next we can have is one we have is close current browser. We can also have close all browsers. Okay, then we can have a method like get title of the page, get title of the page. Then we can have get current URL. What else you can think can be added here? Anyone? Okay. For this get title of the page, the return type won't be void, it will be string. So I'll just change it to string. Similarly for get current URL also, the return type will be string. Any other thing you can think of? Anju, you're saying signing in. Signing in is an application related method. Like it will be specific to an application. So anything which is specific to any application will not use it here, or will not write it in automation layer. We'll write that in application layer. Here you will have only methods related to Selenium. Okay. One more thing, for this open browser and navigate to, you also need URL, which URL you are going to navigate. Okay. Clear cookies will come under this browser, open browser and navigate to part only. Maximizing will also come inside that. Anything, any uh, concrete method or as an action you can think of. Okay, I'll add that later if I found it. But let's complete this class. I mean, complete its implementation. So we created one contract. Let's create one implementation of it, and I'll call it as common driver. Okay, and we'll also say that this common driver method implements what? Driver interface. Okay, as soon as you write this, it is giving me an error that we have some unimplemented methods. So I'll just add unimplemented methods. All those methods will come here. Okay. Now before we jump on to completing these methods, what I'll do, I'll create one constructor of it. Okay. So what is a constructor? Constructor is a method with same name as that of class, and it does not return anything, not even null, right? So I'll just create one constructor with name common driver, and we'll keep this method or constructor as parameterized. Okay, and we'll also say throws exception. Okay, why I'm doing this? Because in my application there will be only one time when your browser will be invoked, and this will be the first class which will be called. The methods from this class will be the first method which will be called, right? So it's always good to invoke the browser at that time only. Otherwise, you will have to write an extra step. I know that this will be the first, I mean the methods from this class will be the first one to called. So when I'm just initializing this class, that time only I'll invoke my browser. And based on this browser type, whether you're using Chrome or IE or Mozilla Firefox, based on this um, parameter you'll pass, we will decide. Okay, and you can see I'm not keeping anything hard coded. Everything I'm writing uh, as a generic method. So here, first thing we'll do is, as you are writing it in framework, always remember to trim whatever string variable you're using. What does this trim method do? Trim method removes white spaces from the end and from the start. Why you need it? Because many a times while copy pasting, uh, many a times while copy pasting, uh, we introduce some extra white spaces. So it's always better to remove white spaces from the end and from the start. Okay, so first thing I've done is uh, removing the white spaces. Then I'll use switch case statement. Okay, based on the key will be browser type. We will be deciding which browser to invoke, right? So if the case is, let's say, equal to Chrome, then I'll be invoking the Chrome browser. If the case will be Firefox, then we will be invoking Firefox browser. Similarly, if the case will be IE, then we'll be invoking Internet Explorer. Okay, and the last one is default. Default means if nothing out of this work, then throws we'll simply throw customize exception saying invalid browser type. And let's give the name of the browser is also which one is not. Okay, so this is what we have done. So let's quickly implement all these. Okay, so for this, let me just quickly take it out from already existing one. So this thing we have done many a times. I'm just copy pasting it. Okay, and the next one is for Chrome. So for Chrome, I'll just copy it. I'll just explain. Give me a minute. After copy pasting, I'll explain. And the last one is okay. Okay, so first one is when we have Chrome. First case is when we have Chrome. I'll be just setting the system property and we'll be initializing our driver instance with Chrome driver. But we have not defined our driver instance. So let's define that. And we will be using proper um, oops concepts here. So you know that there is a concept of getters and setters, right? So we will be keeping all our variables as private and then we'll be using getters and setters to access them. So even my WebDriver I'll keep as private here. So I'll say private WebDriver, let's call it driver. Okay, and WebDriver you have to take one from OpenQA. Okay, so I just defined my private WebDriver and below you have initialize it. If it's a Chrome, then first you are setting the system property. Uh, for webdriver.chrome.driver and then initializing with Chrome driver. If you have Firefox, then you initialize it with Firefox. If you have Internet Explorer, then you will be initializing it with Internet Explorer. Okay, if none of the above matches, then you are simply throwing exception stating invalid browser type. Now, when you will be initializing this class, at that time only it will invoke the respective browser. Okay, so this is invoking. It will just invoke the browser. Then next is you will be calling this method, that is open browser and navigate to. So in this we'll write other things. What all other things we have? First one is driver dot manage dot delete all cookies, right? These are the few steps which always perform. Manage dot, next is maximize, so it will be windows dot maximize. Okay, and then next will be driver dot get what? URL. Okay, but before you directly put in this URL, what you have to do is you have to trim this URL also, because even your URL is a string, and while copy pasting you can introduce some extra white spaces, so it's always better to trim it off. Okay, sometimes what happens is a URL can be empty as well, like you can pass an empty value also. So if it's an empty, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it about blank. That is, you're navigating to a blank page. Okay, then deleting all cookies, maximizing, and then navigating to the particular URL. So this is open browser and navigate to particular URL. Okay, now if you remember, whenever we do this open browser and navigate to part, there we also set page load timeout and element detection timeout, right? But what I want is, I don't want these two values to be hard coded. I want these two values also to be decided by the user. Okay, now before I go into that, any questions till now? Guys, are you following up? I mean, any questions, any problem till now? Jishan, Sandhya, I'm not hearing anything from you. Are you guys following up? Yeah, Anshu, go ahead.
Yeah, so can we put all that browser switch cases what you have written in the constructor in this interface classes?
To
Open browser and navigate to?
you mean to say that instead of in the constructor, I can put it in open browser and navigate to? This is what your question is?
Yes,
Yes, you
yes,
can.
yes, yes.
Yes, you can do that. But the thing is, if you give, can you go on mute, please? Yeah. So you can do that, but the problem is that when you, like, by mistake, you can call this open browser navigate to part multiple times. Okay. So every time when you will call, it will create a new browser instance. But what we want is we want the invocation part as separate and navigating to part as separate, so that browser remains one. And if, let's say, going forward you want to navigate to some other URL, then you don't have to write a separate method for that, because your browser will always will be opened as we have already initialized this common driver. You can simply call this method, that is open browser and navigate to. What it will do, it will navigate you to new URL. If this method name is confusing for you, then we can change the name of the method. If you want that I don't want open browser to part of it, like even it looks confusing to me as well, so what I can do is I can just change its name. Here, instead of open browser, I can call it simple navigate to URL. Okay, here we'll change this name to navigate to URL. Okay, so better now. Any other questions? Jishan, Sandhya, any questions from you two? Okay, fine. So moving on to the next one. Next one is I was just saying that the next thing what I need is uh, I want to set element detection timeout and page load timeout. Okay, but I don't want to keep those two values as hard-coded one. I want user to pass uh, value to it. Okay, so for that, what I'll do, let's see how I will achieve this. Here, I will create two more variables. One will be private uh, uh, private long, and I'll call it first one as page load timeout. Okay, and second one is private long, and we'll call it as element detection timeout. First one is page load timeout and second one is element detection timeout. And as these two are private variables, but we want its access, we want the value from outside, what we'll do, we'll create getters and setters for it. For now, we just need getters. So let's, sorry, we need setters. So let's quickly create two setters for them. Okay, and you know there is a shortcut to create setters. How you can do that? Right click, then source, go to source, then generates getters and setters. Okay, my bad. It will be right click, source, generates getters and setters. And here we need setter for element detection timeout. So I'll use this, and we need setter for page load timeout. So we'll use this. Okay, and we also need getter for driver, but with that will create later on. Click on OK. You can see two setters are created. First one is set page load timeout, and second one is set page element detection timeout. And we'll just move them down for a better readability purpose. So let's move them here. Okay, so this set page load timeout you can set from outside, set element detection timeout you can set from outside. But the problem here comes is if somebody forgets to pass these two values or set these two values from outside, the default value will be 00, right? So what I'm going to do is in my constructor, I'll give some default values to these two variables. So in the page load timeout here, I can give as some default value, let's say 30 seconds, and element detection timeout, I'll give as, let's say 5 seconds. So these two are, let's say 10 seconds. So these two are default values which I'm initializing from constructor. So if somebody forgets to pass these two values from outside, these two values will be used. Otherwise, whatever value you'll pass through these two setters, that will be used. And in my navigate to method, after I navigate to a particular URL, I'll set these two values. So it will be driver dot manage, or I can put this value before this. So it will be driver dot manage dot timeouts dot page load timeout, and the value will be page load timeout, and the unit will be time unit dot seconds. Okay, so similarly we need to set element detection as well. So it will be driver dot manage dot timeouts dot implicit wait. Here it will be element detection timeout, and So this is also done, and then we will navigate to the URL. Okay, so any questions till now? Okay, anyone any question? Yeah, Anshu, I was about to say let's have a break for some time and then we'll continue with the remaining things. Okay, any questions before we go on break? And all these methods are clear. First, we're creating a constructor in which we are invoking the browser, and second, we are navigating to URL. Everything we are keeping as parameterized, nothing is hard coded. Okay, and we'll also implement all these remaining methods.
Saurabh, are you going to use the XML file like we did in TestNG just to
Yeah,
pass
yeah.
the values?
No, for we are not going to use XML files. In Java, there is a standard called properties file. So remember I showed you that config.properties, this one. So all the values of these parameters will be reading from here, but that will come at the last. I mean, when we'll be about to end our frameworks, at that time we will be creating one utility in our no, in our app utility folder, and there we will be reading from this config.properties file.
So we are just passing URL and browser type. These are two
These are
values.
yeah, these are all variables for now. When I'll create the
Yeah,
next layer, this layer application layer, that time I'll be passing the values. So I'll be passing hard coded values that time. But later on we'll move
okay,
those values to config.properties. This layer will
sure,
be
sure, sure.
independent of your application and nothing will be hard coded in it. Not even a single value.
So for our understanding, you're gonna do hard coding so that we know what is going on. But later on,
We'll
you'll
move yeah,
distribute that hard
for
coding.
now you can see I have not kept anything hard coded. Everything is parameterized. You can see URL is no URL. I'm just passing the variable URL, right? Then
And
here,
what are you going to pass? Sorry, yeah, continue.
yeah, let me just complete this file. I'll show you that time. Okay.
And
uh,
are you going to pass the property? No, the browser type.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. All these things, let me complete them. I'll create one more folder where I'll whichever class file I'll create, I'll complete. I'll give you a demo of it, and that time you'll get to
Sure.
know what exactly I'm trying to do. Only things which I've kept as hard coded are default values of these two values. Even you can put these two values into your config folder also, config.properties file. Okay, that also will learn. Okay, so these are default values, so you can put any default value, but you can anytime update them through these setters. Okay,
All right, thanks.
so after break, I'll just complete this common driver class, and then I'll give you a demo of it. Okay. So let's have a break for 7 minutes and then we'll start with it. Okay, so we can continue now. So any questions before we continue here? Okay, next we have is let's continue with this close browser, close or all browser and all. Okay, so here we have is if okay, so what we have to do is we have to close current browser or close all browser. Now to close current browser we have a method called driver.close, and to close all the browsers we have a method called quit. If let's say you're trying to close a browser which is not opened at all, does it make sense? No. So what we do is first we'll check whether a driver is opened or not, then only we'll do. So we'll see if driver is not equal to null, then only call this method called driver dot close. Okay, very simple. First we are checking whether driver instance is not null, then only close. If it is null, that means it's already closed, so no sense of closing it. So here the method will be quit. So all these small things you have to take care. Next is we want title of the page, right? So here the method will be driver dot get title. We're returning simply this value. Then here you need to get the current URL. So we'll simply say driver dot get current URL. So this returns the current URL. So we are done with this first page or first class file, which has all the methods related to browser instance only. Okay, let me quickly see if I'm forgetting something or not. I mean, if anything I forget. Yeah, you can add these methods as well. Navigate forward, navigate back, navigate refresh if you want. Okay, rest everything I have covered. So if you want, you can add those. Otherwise, it's fine because we won't use those methods much. Okay, just one more small thing. What I'm doing is I'll just copy paste already created methods so that we can save our some time. And where is source, common libs, contracts. Okay, I'll just copy paste the methods. Implementation will do together. Okay, before we jump on to that, okay, let's first test whatever we have written whether it will work fine or not. Okay, so in our source folder I'll be creating one more package which will be a temporary package just to test whatever we have written is actually working or not. Okay, so I'll just call it as test folder, and in this we will be creating all the demo files. So the first one will be demo common driver. We'll see that whatever we have written for common driver whether it's working fine or not. So we'll keep this public static void main checked here, and here so here first step will be we will be initializing common driver, right? So it will be common driver. Let's say common driver equal to new common driver, and it needs the browser type. So here we will be passing Chrome. Okay, just one more thing you can do. Sometimes what happens is in this browser type you can pass like Chrome can be in all in capitals or all in small. So a better approach will be, let's when we are checking it, okay, here let's add two lowercase. so that every time we pass this browser type, every time it will convert everything into lower uh, characters, and this issue might will not come. Okay, so I just converted into lowercase, and here we passed Chrome. So this single line will go and open the Chrome browser. Just one more thing, as in all the methods we have written throws exception, so here we need to handle that. Okay, so to handle, we can say try catch block, and for now I'm just printing. Later on we'll add that all these exceptions into log files. Next will be common driver dot navigate to URL. Which URL? Let me create that as a variable. Okay, after navigating, let's say, okay, before we navigate, we also need to set the page load timeout and element detection timeout, right? So it will be common driver dot set page load timeout. Let's say I'm keeping it as 30 seconds, or maybe more than that, uh, 45 seconds. Next is common driver dot set element detection timeout, and here I'm keeping it as 10 seconds. Okay, so what I did is, first of all, defined a URL, invoked the browser using this first statement where I'm just initializing and it will invoke the browser. Next, setting the page load time. Third, element detection timeout. And fourth, navigating to the URL. Now when I'll execute this code, so you can see it has opened the browser, navigated to that URL, and I could have added at the end. Okay, here I wanted to print common driver dot get uh, get title of the page, and after that, let's say I just want to close the browser. Common driver dot close browser. So you can see how things are done now. Okay, earlier I used to write the complete logic, copy paste. Now you just have to do these steps and everything will be done. Okay, so that means I have just called many of the methods. So that means my common driver is working absolutely fine, right? So any questions here? Okay, next uh, will be I'll create another contract and then we'll implement. Okay, so let me first create all the contracts, and then in one go we will write all its implementation. So the next will be common elements. What we are going to write in it is, in this interface, we are going to write all those methods which uh, which has common actions, like uh, whether it's a link or a button, get text will remain same. Okay, clicking on a button or a radio button or a checkbox will remain same. So all those methods which are common to all the elements, we will be writing in here. Okay, so I'll just copy paste the method names. So these are the methods. First one is click. So clicking on an element, whether it's a button or whether it's a checkbox or whether it's a radio button, remain same. So I just created a method with the name click. Next is get text. So getting a text from any method is like same. Getting attribute, you can get attribute from any element. You just have to pass which element and what attribute. Similarly, getting CSS value, checking whether an element is enabled, visible, and selected. So these are certain methods which are common to all the elements. We will be um, creating a separate class for it, and all these methods will be implemented in its class. Any questions?
Hello, Saurabh.
Yeah, Yanshu.
Yeah, actually, I just want to ask. Yeah, these methods are you are implementing on the basis of analyzing that website, or is this the common one, generic
The,
one for
the
all?
all these are common one. They are not specific to any application. Okay, so clicking on a button, a link, a radio button, all remain same. So all those common methods I've put here. This layer is independent of application you are automating. Okay, so this complete layer, that is the last one. Anshu, can you go on mute, please?
No, no, I just want to ask one thing. That's why I just unmuted.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
is this
yeah.
all these methods will be used in any of the web application while
Yeah.
we are creating our project?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So you can see the application related things are these three layers only. Rest, everything you see, they all are common. Okay, they everything will remain common. Also, these two utilities will also be application specific. Otherwise, this section, complete this section will be independent of your application. You can just take out everything what I'm just creating, just take out everything and introduce in your new project, and things will work absolutely fine. Okay, so this complete layer, that is common labs layer, this will be common. I'm not touching any part of the application in it. Okay, so you can use this layer in any of your project. Okay. Okay, so and yeah, I was asking you to go on mute because a lot of what we call echo is coming when I speak. That's why I was asking you to go on mute. Otherwise, you can ask questions anytime, no problem with that. Okay, so common elements is also done. Next we have is uh, let's take one by one. What? Let's take drop down. So I'll create one interface for specifically for drop downs. So I'll create an interface and I'll call it as drop down. Okay, and it will have all the drop down related methods. So what all drop down related methods I can think of? These are the methods: select via visible text, select via value, select via index. So three select methods. Then to verify whether a drop down allowed multiple selection or not, so we have is multiple. And then for getting options, we have get all options, get selected options, and get first selected option. Return type for these two, get all and all options and get all selected options, will be a list of web elements. Whereas for the last one, it will be only web element. And deselect methods I'm not writing. Reason being, deselect methods are uh, not used frequently. Okay, so I'm not adding. If you think in your application you need them, just add them. Okay, so this is drop down. Then Let's take this checkbox. So for checkbox, what I'm doing is, see, checkbox is like a toggle button, right? You can, once you click on it for once, just give me a second, I'll explain. Okay, so what I'm saying is checkbox are like toggle buttons. So once you click on it, it will get checked. Next time when you click on it, it gets unchecked. So uh, just going and clicking won't give us the desired result. So for that, what we'll do, we'll first check its status. We'll check whether it's checked or not, and then we'll see what we want. If it is checked and we also want it to be checked, that means we don't have to click on it. Whereas if it is checked and if we want it to be unchecked, then we want to click on it. So based on the status, see here what I'm method I'm writing, change checkbox status. So based on the status, we'll take the decision to click or not. Okay, so for that this checkbox control will come. One method I've written in it. Any questions till now? Okay, next is mouse operations. So all the mouse related operations like drag and drop, um, right click, double click will come in it. Okay, so mouse operation is the name of the class, and I'll just copy paste all these methods. So methods are drag and drop, move to element, right click, double click, move to an element and click. So we'll complete its class with these methods. Then after mouse operations, we can have, let's say, take screenshot. So for taking screenshot, we'll have only one method, that is capture and uh, saving screenshot. So I can call it this class as this interface as screenshot, and we'll have a method called save screenshot. Okay, then
I have a question, Saurabh.
yeah,
Why we are passing in each method throws exception? Like
because
if there's any,
okay,
yeah,
I got your question. So recall the time when we discussed about exception handling. In that we discussed about try catch, we discussed about throws, and we discussed about throw, right? Now specifically at the end when I was teaching you throws, that time I give you one issue which happens if you do try catch in all the methods itself. The problem is if you're doing try catch uh, in each method, then the exceptional handling will be handled there only. And in the calling class, let's say if you have 5 methods and third method is throwing an exception, even though third is failed and you don't want to execute fourth and fifth, still they will execute because your exceptional handling was done in calling method. Okay, so it's always good that you throws exception from all the methods, and handling should be done at the top layer. Okay, so for us in this layer, we will be throwing exception from everywhere. From here also I'll be throwing exception. From here also I'll be throwing exception. From all these utilities also I'll be throwing exception. And handling will be done in this layer. That is the test case layer. Okay, so all these will throw. Try catch will be there in test case layer. And there we can do uh, whatever we want. And also if some exception will be coming, we can take decision whether to proceed or not. Okay, so getting the point,
so
Kishan.
if if there is an issue in the method, so
Mhm.
it will not show any error in that method if we throw the exception. Is that correct?
It will throw
If there is
in the
any
call.
mistake or any error in the method.
It, if there will be any exception that won't be handled there, it will be thrown to the calling class. Okay, so if let's say this common driver, In this class, if some exception occurs, let's say, okay, it's an interface. Let me open. Uh, in this common driver class, let's say some exception occurred. Okay, maybe you pass some. Okay, let me show you. In the demo common driver, if I come here and change this Chrome to, let's say, some name, Mozilla is not there. Firefox is there, right? So if I execute this code, you will see it will simply throw an exception and won't proceed. Okay, it throws an exception, invalid browser type Mozilla, because Mozilla we are not handling. The name we have given is Firefox, right? So what happened here is this demo common driver, it called this method, it went inside this common driver, which is written here. It went here, tried this, and here from here an exception was thrown. So when an exception was thrown, it just throwed it back to the calling class. And for us, the calling class is this demo common driver class. So it came here. Now here, when the exception is there, here we have try catch block. What it did, uh, it from this try block, this exception came out and go into one of the catch. So exceptional handling is still done, but at the topmost layer, not in the bottom layers, or you can say in here in the common driver. Okay, getting the point now, Jishan?
Yes, got it. Thanks.
Okay, and for more explanation, you can go through the recordings of you can go through the recordings of exception class. There you'll get more clarity that what exactly I'm trying to achieve.
Saurabh,
Yes, Sandhya.
yeah, so like here, you mentioned that invalid browser type, right? The
Mm-hmm.
throw new exception. So if the exception occurs, then it will throw this error, or you mentioned that in the cache box, block of that
Yeah, yeah. So from
main thing. So which message will come, like the print stack or this one, print stack or this one?
Okay, I guess you're not clear with the print track then. See, from here we are just throwing this exception. There was no customized exception for us. I mean, there was no already created exception, so we created our own exception and we said invalid browser type and this. So this is our message. Now, when you'll execute it, here an exception has occurred. Okay, there is no standard exception which occurred. The exception which has occurred is this one. So what does this e.print stack do? Whatever exception occurs, it just prints it. So stack trace means it just prints the trace. Whatever exception comes, it just prints on the console. So here, if you'll observe, when I show you the console, it just printed that same exception. What it is saying, invalid browser type Mozilla. This was the message. Where it has occurred in common driver class at line number 46. From where it started from demo common driver 13. So stack trace is like we always read from down to up. So first of all, I'll see, okay, it has occurred in demo common driver. Then I'll go up, it has occurred from the demo common driver. We were calling a method from common driver at line number 46. And what is the message? This is the message. So if I click on it, you will see I can reach there. And you can see this was the message. So print stack trace just prints whatever exception occurs. Okay.
Okay, if we don't mention this one, like throw new exception here in this class, right?
Uh-huh.
So what will be the exception in the
Then
console?
there won't be any exception, right? It will not do anything. If you'll not,
Even though you put that like a print stack there in the main class,
yeah,
even
see,
though it will not print anything.
yeah, if I just comment it out, if I comment
Mm-hmm.
it out, that means there is no exception occurs when default is called. So that means default uh, will not execute anything. You will not get any error or exception. It will just from here, like here we have called this statement. So you're passing Mozilla will go in default. In default there is nothing. That means no browser will be initialized. rest everything. Then next remaining methods will start throwing exception, because here there is no browser which has opened, so uh, none of the next, I mean every statement, next statement what we have, it is going to set page load timeout. So this will work fine, this will work fine, because these two are just setters. But when we are trying to navigate, this method will throw exception for you now. Okay.
Yeah, can you run that for me, please?
So currently there is no browser which will get invoked. We are not throwing any exception. So when I'll execute this code, see, null pointer exception is coming, and if you'll see where this null pointer exception is coming, it is coming in navigate to URL method. That means in this next method, this thing went absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
This went absolutely
Mm-hmm.
fine. This also went absolutely
Okay.
fine. It throws exception
Mm-hmm.
here. And what exception it is saying? It, and you can see this is line number 17. And what is the exception here? Just give me a second. Here in the line number 68, it is throwing exception because here you are trying to delete all cookies on this browser, but this browser is not yet initialized. So it is
Mm-hmm.
pointing to null. So what exception you
Okay.
got? You got the standard exception. Okay,
Okay. 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 Yeah. Thanks.
no problem. And I'll just uncomment it out, and now it will work absolutely fine. I'll change it back to Chrome. Okay, so any other question? Okay, then moving on to the next one, I'll create one for text box. So in text box, what all you do? Either you write or you clear, right? So I'll create a class interface and we'll call it text box. So for text box, we'll say set text box and clear text box. So set text box is to set the text, clear text box is to clear the text. Next is window handling. So window handling is like when you have to switch to a new window or you have to switch to parent window, child window, that will come here. So window handling, and I'll just copy paste all these, paste them here. Okay, it should be an interface. I just created. Okay, so here it needs done. Then what else is there? Alert handling. So all the methods related to an alert will come in it. So I'll call it alert handling. So what all you can do with an alert? You can accept an alert, you can reject an alert, you can get message from an alert, and you can check whether an alert is present or not. I'll copy all these methods, put in here. Okay, again it's they created a class, it should be an interface. So this is also done. What else? Frame handling. So all the methods related to a frame, like switching to a frame and switching to default content. So it will be frame handling. Sorry. So it will be frame handling. And in this we can copy paste all these methods. So switching to a frame when frame ID is given, when web element is given, and when an index is given. Okay, what else? Then we have JavaScript. So all the JavaScript related query things. So JavaScript, and so execute JavaScript, scroll down and execute JavaScript with a return value. So these are certain methods which we'll be needing in JavaScript. Now next will be, we will be implementing all these interfaces which we have created in implementation. So tomorrow we'll spend our whole time in implementing all these methods. So one class is done, that is common driver. The rest all we will create. Okay, like the first one, if we'll say common element, I'll just add a keyword control so that you'll get a difference between interfaces and classes. So we'll add controls, and here we'll say implements common element interface. So it will give you an option of add an implemented method. So we'll do this. Now if I quickly complete this class, you have to, first thing you have to do is click on what element is already given to you. So I just want to click on element, so I'll say element dot click. Next, get text. So here I'll say string text equal to element dot get text, right? And here when you have to return the value, you'll simply return text. Next is get attribute. So when you have to get the attribute, it will be string uh, value of attribute. So it will be element dot get attribute. Which attribute? This one. Whatever value you'll get will return simply, right? Then last is get CSS value. Is element enabled, is element visible, is element selected. So we need to just complete all these three. Let me quickly do that. So here instead of creating this, I'll simply say element dot get CSS value for which this CSS property. Similarly, here you want to see whether an element is enabled or disabled, so you can simply say element dot is what it is enabled, right? So is enabled is the method. Similarly, next is we need to check whether it's visible or not. So element dot is displayed is the method. And the last one is element selected. So we'll simply say element dot is selected and done. So quickly see in this common elements, first one was to click. Where you have to click on an element. So web element is passed here. What you have to do is element dot click. Done. Set text. Get text. You want to get text from an element. Element is given. Element dot get text. You want to get the attribute value. So element is given. Attribute type is given. So element dot get attribute. Give the attribute type, and so on. So this is we have completed the second class as well. Okay, implementation of second class. Now you can add this to your common demo common driver. You can add some of the methods and you can continue. Clear? Any questions now?
Please don't forget to upload this code.
Sorry?
Please don't forget to upload this code.
I'll just do it straight away. I will forget then. Let me do it. Let me stop the recording. So,
And
any other questions? Anyone? Okay, let me just stop the
and
recording.